Good evening, everyone. My name is Candace Lytle, and I'm your host for this premiere event in our My Journey series. On behalf of everyone at ACT, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so honored to be joined by our incredible expert speakers tonight from Collegewise. But before I turn things over to them, I want to cover some essentials to help enhance your viewing experience. You're going to see a lot of different tools and widgets on your screen that you're in control of. They're resizable and movable, so you're welcome to move them around to get the most out of your screen space. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit them through our Q&A engagement tool. We will do our absolute best to answer them throughout the webinar, but we'll also have some time for questions at the end. A copy of the slides are available in the resources tool, as well as some other handy items to accompany this presentation. This webinar will be recorded and sent to the email address you registered with within 1 week. For the best viewing experience, we encourage using a high speed and stable internet connection and closing any programs or browser sessions running in the background that could cause issues. If you find things still lagging or the sound stops working, try Control F5 or a hard refresh. If you're struggling with anything else, check out the help tool at the bottom of your screen. And finally, there's a helpful webinar viewing tips and reminders slide on your screen that will remain visible the entire webinar. If you have any issues, you can click the On24 Help button at the top of the screen. Okay, I'm ready, and I hope you are too. At this time, I'll turn it over to our friends at Collegewise. Take it away, Anita.
Thank you so much, Candace. All right, we're talking about a hot topic today, ethical AI in college admissions. I will tell you that I was joking around that by the time we're done with this presentation, things will have changed. And, it's just going at such a rapid pace and it's really hard to keep up. So we're really excited to talk about this topic and go into a little bit more detail about what we know so far and what we're seeing with students, especially in college admissions. With that said, I'm going to first start by asking you all to fill out this poll. We're really curious to know who's joining us today. We really like to tailor our presentations to the audience. So when we know who's in our group, it just helps us think about who to best talk to, who our audience is. So go ahead and click on one of those who's joining us today. Are you a student? Are you a parent or guardian? Are you a student and a parent guardian? Are you a counselor or educator? I see people are coming in with some responses. All right, give you another second or two here. Ooh, very nice. Okay. All right. We've got a lot of people here tonight, so this is great. You should be able to, okay. I'm gonna go to the next slide and unveil the answers. All right, lots of students, awesome. Lots of parents too, we love that. Not a lot of students and their parents together. That's okay. Maybe you're on separate Zoom, different screens and computers. And then a lot of counselors and educators, which is great. We are all trying to learn, and it's great that we can learn from one another. All right. Before I dive right into the presentation, I do want to say a little bit about Collegewise, because you might be like, I came here through ACT. What is this Collegewise thing? So Collegewise is a college counseling firm. We aim to be the most trusted source. We know there's a lot of information out there, and dare I say misinformation. There's a lot to keep up with. There's a lot of changes all the time. Our staff spends a lot of time doing professional development. We really want to read all the things that are out there. We want to talk to students. We want to talk to families. We want to talk to admissions officers, what's coming down the pipe, so that we can give the best advice to our families when we work with them. A little bit more about us is that we were founded in 1999. We started off with a team of one, our founder, Kevin, and over the years we've really grown. And we believe in a very personalized one-on-one approach to college counseling. We have college counselors on our team. We have tutors on our team, a lot of different people working with students in different ways so that we can really help them in the best way possible. We are all over the US and actually all over the world, but most of our counselors are in the US, and we're working with a wide variety of students. Most of our students we're working with remotely, although we do have some in-person offices as well. And we really love working with students, and that's the biggest part of why we do what we do. Okay, we're going to get to this presentation really soon. I'm going to say a little bit about myself, then turn it over to Matthew to say a little bit about himself, and then get started. So my name's Anita Doty. I am a Collegewise counselor. I've been here for about 5 years. My previous experience was all on the college side. So I worked at a few different colleges and universities. In particular, I was an academic advisor at the University of Chicago. I loved what I did. I loved working with students. I loved talking about careers and majors and classes and all that good stuff. But I had kids of my own. I actually have a sophomore in high school and a senior in high school. So we just got through the senior, all his college stuff. So that's been a huge relief. But so when I had kids, I just had to think about, like all that life balance kind of work balance kind of stuff. And so working remotely has been really great for me because I can raise my kids and I get to do the stuff that I really, really enjoy, which is working one-on-one with families and really getting to know them and what it is that's important to them. And I like to call myself a matchmaker because I get to know the students and the families really well. I spend a lot of time getting to know colleges and this process. And so then we can really serve you best by really working with you individually and figuring out a plan that's tailored to you and finding great fit colleges. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to be quiet for a bit and I'm going to let Matthew take over and then I'll see you again later.
Hi, I'm Matthew. Okay, well, so I'm based in Baltimore and I have been involved in the college counseling world since 2019. Since I graduated college in 2018, I've been involved in education in some way, whether that's been tutoring, teaching at the college level, or teaching high schoolers. And maybe about my place at Collegewise, I'm kind of known as Collegewise's resident mega nerd. So my two majors in undergrad were bioengineering and comparative literature. So I know about the STEM side, I know about the writing side. And one of the things that I've always been interested in since my undergrad has been things like machine learning. And even now I'm still tinkering with doing little economic simulations with AI. So this is a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. And I'd love to talk more about it in the context of college admissions. So what's on the agenda for today? So we're covering AI and ethics. And this is, like Anita said, a subject that's so new and that's changing every day that it's understandable that families just don't know what the standards are or what's the best strategy for applications. And this is made more confusing by, on one hand, hearing that, okay, AI is the future, everyone should learn how to use it, and then hearing, okay, you cannot use it in these contexts, it's unethical. And again, it's so new that it's hard to see where the lines are or what's best for you. So as Collegewise counselors, we want to give you the best information possible to help make the best decisions and reduce stress. College admissions is a roller coaster ride, and we want to be the ones laughing hysterically instead of crying and vomiting. So the two things that I really want you to take away from today's presentation are this. So what colleges are doing related to AI and ethics, and then second, what you should do as a family. And so breaking down this agenda, first, we'll look at the current landscape of student AI use and why it's this new phenomenon that colleges feel pressed to respond to. Afterwards, we'll look at different college responses to AI. Then we'll look at AI admissions policies. So looking at the languages that colleges use to describe when it's okay to use AI for applications and when it's not. Then we'll look at enforcement. So if a student breaks whatever a college's AI policies are, what happens? And then afterwards, we'll look at application best practices. And then finally, how you as families can stay ahead and what you can do. So I think we all know that students today are turning to AI for writing and assistance at an overwhelming scale. We see it in classrooms, we see it outside of classrooms. And again, the writing process is so complex and AI is such a useful tool for a lot of it that it's becoming harder and harder to tell what counts as student work. So some of the most recent information we have is from a College Board report. So as of June 2025, using a survey of, I think, about 500 students. So 84% of the students surveyed use AI for schoolwork in some way. So of the students that reported, yes, I use AI for schoolwork, 50% use it for brainstorming, 50% for editing and revising, and 50% for researching and finding sources. And again, keep in mind that these are still pretty imprecise terms. Yeah, I still have friends at UC Berkeley, and they received an internal communication from an advisor about a case where a student had been accused of plagiarism using AI. And after some digging, they kind of found that the student really believed that the work was their own, but they relied on AI for essentially finding and quoting sources when the expectation was that they should read the sources themselves. So that could potentially be, count as researching or finding sources, but it's something that, while it can be useful, can easily cross over into plagiarism. So again, very difficult. This is backed up by a University of Liverpool case study where they basically gave a bunch of students a writing assignment and then tracked their screens to see what they did. And so while the first most popular use was to use AI to kind of help them do research and find sources, the second most popular use for AI was to generate an essay plan or structure. And 61% of the students in this case study did so. Again, it's hard to say whether the students were doing it to make my outline better or just give me an essay to write and I'll fill in the blanks. And so when it comes to college admissions specifically, the organization Foundry 10 reported in 2024 that about 30% of the students surveyed used AI for college essay help. So they also dug deeper into their numbers. And again, they broke down AI use into different categories: brainstorming, checking grammar, everything to like translating the language of an essay. So again, when you see all these categories, and again, it's not clear which set of them a particular student is using, it's just so hard now to actually define what constitutes a student's own work, much less identify it, unless colleges, students, parents, teachers, counselors are extremely precise when it comes to the ethical use of AI. And this is kind of a theme that I want to return to throughout the presentation, and that I know Anita will as well, that you should not only reflect on this yourself, but also demand transparency from colleges and counselors. So we've established that student AI generated writing is this really big phenomenon. And it's creating trouble because ultimately, when it comes to the college admissions process, colleges want to understand what a student's skills are so that they can see, okay, we're a good school that fits the student's needs, or the student would do better at a different school. Or conversely, it's the student's genuine personality is a great fit for here. We'd love to have them, or we can see other colleges being a better fit. And that's all very hard to assess if a student is using AI to generate writing. So what are colleges doing in response? The first response is plagiarism detection. So they're using existing software like Turnitin, which has been plagiarism detection software that's been around for a very long time. And also tools like GPT-0. And both of these tools now have very sophisticated AI-powered detection tools. So what these software do is that they train AI to distinguish between AI and student writing. And so when an AI receives a student's essay, they basically use those internal weights to make their best guess whether this writing was generated by a student or an AI. So there are disadvantages to this approach. So there are higher than comfortable rates of false positives and false negatives. So cases where the AI detection algorithm falsely identifies student writing as AI, and cases where an algorithm fails to detect an AI generated essay. And so this is this is technology is better than nothing, but it's definitely not perfect. Another disadvantage is that it also falsely detects a student. It falsely detects AI usage at higher rates for students whose native language isn't English. So they're falsely accusing, or at least the algorithm is falsely accusing students who have written their own work as using AI. And then finally, the last disadvantage is that these algorithms are not transparent. So when you or I detect AI-generated writing, we're looking for things like, it's not this, it's this, phrases like that, or something quietly happens. Well, these software aren't using those heuristics that we are. It's actually very unclear what internal weights they're actually using to distinguish between student and AI writing. And that makes it hard to hold these software companies accountable. So in addition to these software levels of plagiarism detection, other colleges are using human processes, and then some schools are even conducting just randomized verification processes. So Brown and the UCs are doing this, where they'll ask a student to confirm materials for their essay. So the other college response to AI is, again, since this is so unclear where the lines are between student work and AI work, especially when AI is such a powerful assistant for writing, that more colleges have started coming out with integrity policies. So updating their existing their policies for things like plagiarism to address the rise of AI assisted work, including outlining clear consequences for cheating or submitting AI-generated essays. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of these policies in a moment, but just know that this is another response to AI. In addition to this, some colleges are revamping the admissions process. So if they can't trust that student writing is their own, then they're finding other ways to assess students. So a few universities like Princeton and Amherst are asking students to submit additional materials such as a graded school paper. Other schools like Caltech or Minerva are asking for things like research or work portfolios. Other schools, on the other hand, like Duke, are retreating from essays altogether. So Duke is lowering the value of essays. It's still part of the application process, but because they know they can't reliably distinguish between student writing and AI writing at a consistent enough rate, and they know that, again, these ethical lines are very unclear as of now, they're just lowering the weight of the essays in the overall holistic evaluation process. And then finally, some students are turning increasingly towards spontaneous evaluation. So this includes interviews, especially because, and so for these interviews, because it's such a logistical difficulty, especially for larger colleges to interview every single applicant, colleges are actually turning to AI interviews, such as Caltech. Other schools, rather than just interviews, are looking at testing-like scenarios, having proctored responses to videos. So this would include the University of Toronto and the University of Waterloo. And then finally, colleges are trying to promote educational efforts and campaigns to educate students about the importance of originality and the potential consequences of using AI to plagiarize. So a lot of universities will have as language on their website that, look, we know that there's this temptation to use AI, but if you want to get into our school, we need to see personality, we need to see you on the page, and that actually, if you use AI, your essay will be less effective. Other schools like MIT are actually launching concerted campaigns to educate students about AI use and general AI ethics. So on the previous slides, we talked about schools revamping their integrity policies. And so I know one of your biggest concerns is, okay, what if my student gets flagged as, as writing AI, using AI in their essays? How do I adapt to this shifting landscape where the rules are unclear? So in an effort to clarify things, Kaplan conducted a survey where they contacted of about 200 admissions officers at 220 different universities. And they surveyed them about the current admissions policies. So in the slide below, the numbers that you'll see are for 2025, conducted in November, and then the numbers in parentheses will be from 2024. So the first and most important thing is that only 2% of colleges of the colleges surveyed say that they have an official policy that allows students to use generative AI to write their admissions essays. 30% totally ban its use, and then 67% have no policy at all. So what you should know is that basically almost no colleges allow AIs to actually write the essays. So your student should not be doing this. And then second, you probably see that 60% without a policy, that seems like a big number, and there is a lack of clarity. But a lot of that is because the colleges are relying on the application affirmations in the Common App rather than develop their own language. So when a student fills out the Common App, they'll see towards the end that some boxes to check. And one of them is, I certify that all information submitted in the admission process, including this application and any other supporting materials, is my own work, factually true and honestly presented. And so the Common App goes on to outline a series of consequences, including having admissions revoked. And so often colleges will rely on this language provided by the Common App. So again, the problem with this is that, again, with AI assistance, it's super hard to tell whether we should consider a given essay a student's own work versus AI generated if they used AI at all. Because again, the process of brainstorming, outlining, drafting, editing is so complex that it's hard for anyone to really see the lines. So luckily, more colleges have developed a policy with those more specific aspects of the application writing. So for brainstorming, about a third of college admissions officers say their college has an official policy allowing applicants to use generative AI programs to brainstorm essay ideas. So this is a little misleading. So this doesn't mean that the AI algorithm comes up with an essay idea for the student. It's more that the generative AI is used to interview the student to help the student come up with ideas in response to questions. That said, so 4% still have an official policy banning it for even this use. And then again, the remaining 69%, 70% have no official policy in place. So yeah, when it comes to editing and feedback, about a fifth of universities have an official policy allowing for light editing. So things like grammar and spelling checks. 5% don't even allow that. And then again, the remaining 73% have no existing official policy. So what should you take away from this? So first, I think you should really demand transparency. And luckily, colleges are starting to converge on a set of guidelines, which I'll get to in just a little bit. And then secondly, if you're unsure, try and look at try and make the AI policies a part of your college research. So when you're looking at a school and you're considering whether or not to apply, you shouldn't just be looking at SAT scores. You shouldn't just be looking at GPA range. You should also be looking at, okay, if I'm writing an essay for this college, what are the expectations regarding AI? And how can I find out more? And so part of this might be contacting, if the school doesn't have an official posted admissions policy, then it might be worth contacting your local admissions officer. So earlier I had mentioned that there has been some convergence when it comes to AI policies. So I'm gonna actually just read you through a couple from different schools. So the first is Caltech. So Caltech says some examples of unethical uses for AI include copying and pasting directly from an AI generator, relying on AI generated content to outline or draft an essay, replacing your unique voice and tone with AI generated content, and translating an essay written in another language. Whereas ethical uses of AI, according to Caltech, for their essays are using AI tools like Grammarly or Microsoft Editor to review grammar and spelling of your completed essays, generating questions or exercises to help kickstart the brainstorming process, and using AI to research the college application process. And so across other schools, we'll see a lot of similar language. So Cornell, for example, Cornell says that ethical uses of generative AI include researching colleges, brainstorming essay topics, and reviewing the grammar and spelling of your completed essays. Unethical uses include, but are not limited to, using generative AI to outline, draft, or write your essays, translating an essay written in another language, and creating images for required portfolio. And you'll see a lot of the same language from, say, Yale. And then a school like Brown is a little bit more limited. So Brown's language is Brown affirms this definition and reiterates our own independent policy that the use of artificial intelligence by an applicant is not permitted under any circumstances in conjunction with application content. While an applicant may use artificial intelligence to assist with spelling and grammar review in the same way as any other platform that supports basic proofreading, the content of all essays, short answer questions, and any other material submitted by an applicant must be the work of that individual. So there are subtle differences between all of these, but in terms of where colleges seem to be converging, it's that light editing for grammar and spelling seems to be within the bounds of allowability, at least at many schools. But anything that involves coming up with your own story is off limits. Okay, so what if you are accused of using AI or you did use AI unethically? And so how do schools enforce this, their ethics policies that we just discussed? And what should you expect for, as a student or a family, if you're on the wrong side of AI policy enforcement? So as I talked about earlier, many schools are turning to various AI detection software like GPT-0 and turn it in as the first line of defense. There are some exceptions like Vanderbilt, which relies exclusively on human detection. And so this is basically an initial pass that's becoming much, much more common for schools to conduct, is just part of the new status quo. And so again, there are big problems with this. There are uncomfortably high rates of false positives and false negatives, especially for non-native English speakers. And if it's software, it's not very transparent. Often these software can't explain their decision-making like humans can. So then the question is what will a college do if they suspect you? And this is again where I'll say that you should make this part of the college research process. And if you can't find language online for the college that you're interested in, go ahead and ask your admissions officer. So what we do know is that many colleges have broad verification and revocation rights. So they, have very a lot of leeway to say, okay, we think this essay is AI generated, and they have a lot of leeway based on that suspicion to say, okay, we will not admit a student to the school and potentially revoke an acceptance. When they have such broad rights, it's hard to know for sure what they're doing on their end if a student's essay is suspected of being generated by AI. So again, this is why demanding transparency is so important. So what do colleges do? So the easiest place to look is at the UC system, which out of most colleges out there is one of the most transparent in how it conducts investigations of plagiarism and fraudulent AI use. So as a first line of defense, they screen their PIQs, their personal insight questions, using plagiarism detection software. Afterwards, they'll investigate suspected falsification and notify a student with instructions for follow-up. So the student will hopefully follow up, documenting that they've been truthful in all their application materials. And after that student follow-up, admissions officials will conduct a review and make a final determination. So if the UC system confirms misconduct, they may cancel your application. So many other schools are a lot less transparent, but across many schools' websites, there's language like many other schools, so like applicants may be asked to participate in the verification process. So I think that may is very crucial in there. So, so it's not a guarantee that the school will even follow up with you when it comes to confirming whether their suspicion of you using AI generation in your essays is correct. So what that means is it's probably better to be safe than sorry. So common follow-ups for these universities might involve requesting an explanation from the applicant. So they'll just state forthrightly, look, we have strong suspicion that your essay was generated using AI. Can you provide an explanation for this? They might also request additional writing samples or documentation. They might also request interviews or follow-up questioning that happens live and can't be faked as easily. And then finally, if a student's writing sample far outpaces what they know about the student, say from their English grade, then they might request verification that the essay is a student's work from recommenders or their high school. So again, it's not a guarantee that a given university will do any of these things if they suspect you of using AI. Again, that's why it's so important to demand transparency and also to play it safe. So AI is a wonderful tool in many cases, but if you're worried about being flagged, then it might be best to reduce your use, even if it's an ethical use of those tools. Another great tip that I tell all my students now is that you should save drafts of every stage of your essays, just so that if there is follow-up, you can show, okay, here in my Google document, here's the draft that existed at this date, and here's the final draft. And this shows that I've been developing this essay myself. Okay, and then, so now that we're past the different policies and enforcement, now I'm sure you want to know, okay, what should I do? What are the best practices for using AI so that I can avoid running afoul of different colleges' ethics policies and ultimately write the best essay that I can write? And for that, I'll turn it over to Anita.
Thank you so much, Matthew. It's so great to hear about all the differences and some of the similarities that we're seeing. Before I go on with the slides, I just want to say, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. We've got a few more slides, and then we'd love to have some discussion with you all and really make sure that we're addressing the things that are on your mind. So go ahead and put those in the Q&A box, and we'll get to them in just a few minutes. All right, so like Matthew said, he's talking about a lot of the college stuff. We're going to go back to students. What are you going to do about AI? At Collegewise, we actually have a pretty good policy that's been outlined for us as counselors about what we do and do not want to see with AI. It's both for us as counselors and staff members, but it's also for students. As Matthew said, proofreading seems pretty, widespread. We've been using spell check and grammar check and Grammarly for a while. Those are basic tools. Those have been mostly fine with everyone, right? Some light proofreading, some light, tweaking of what you're saying can be helpful, as long as they're your words originally, right? College research. We're seeing more and more students do college research. I will say that they mostly get good answers, but every once in a while I see something a little odd and I'm like, what did you use? And I can tell a student has probably used AI. AI always uses those little emojis in the pictures, and they always put bullet points, which I love. But I'm like, did the student do it or not? And I don't mind either way, as long as they're getting good information. And I think it's really important to know what are the sources. Where is this pulling from? Is it just pulling blanketly from the web, or are you asking it, to look at a particular site that might be a good site for you? Like maybe it's going directly to a university and pulling out some of the things that you want to highlight about that university and you want to know about. So college research, definitely a good tool, but just be careful of your sources, just like always in life. Managing deadlines. Oh, this process can be, it's a lot. There's just a lot of deadlines and things that are required. I often tell students, go back to the admissions page and just double check, for all those schools that are on your final list that you're going to apply to, just double check that admissions page to make sure you're getting the best information. And AI can help. Maybe it'll help you find those pages. Maybe it'll help you distill what's on those pages. Maybe it'll just, pull out the things that you're most looking for in a timely way. Because, if you're applying to 10 schools, which a lot of our students do, it can feel pretty overwhelming and cumbersome. And certainly, if you want to sell AI, like, okay, I've got 10 schools, these are the deadlines, tell me a plan for how I can accomplish all of this. That's a great use of AI. Some things that we don't love, brainstorming can be a little tricky. I think AI can be very useful if you're saying, hey, help me understand what this question is asking. At Collegewise, we actually look at all the essay questions in the summer, and sometimes we have these conversations with each other of like, that question was really wordy. What is it actually saying? And I was talking to an admissions officer recently. I won't say which university, but he said that he heard from a number of students that their essay question was really hard to understand. It was not very well said, I guess. And so the students told him that they were using AI to parse through that question. They weren't asking AI to give the answers, but they were asking AI like, okay, help me understand this question. What are some follow-up questions that you can ask me as sort of like an interview? Interview me so that I can come up with better answers to these questions. And that seems like a particularly good way. You want to be careful about asking AI for opinions because, again, you don't know where that's coming from, and opinions are not fact, right? So let's be a little careful there. We definitely don't want students writing essays with AI. Asking a student to write a full essay with the AI, I'm going to show you an example in a minute. It just is not very sophisticated as a tool and will not give you the best essays. And I'll explain in a minute more about that. And then completing assignments. Your work should be your own. It's okay to get a little help and support from friends, family, AI, the internet, but be really careful. One great tip I heard recently was someone said, everything should begin with the person and end with the person, even though if you use AI just a little bit in the middle. And what that means is you have to use your judgment and your decision making so that you're really making sure that what you're doing in terms of your assignments and your writing is truthful to you. And you want to make sure that you're not just panicking and, having AI do an assignment last minute because it could be horrible. And I've seen some, pieces just on the web where students have, panicked, used something, and I was always taught as an academic advisor that students cheat when they're panicking. There's a deadline. I don't know what to do, and they panic. And that's why sometimes they do these things. But the answers that you get will be sloppy and they won't be very good. So it's better to just say, hey, don't panic. What can I do to problem solve here? Maybe you're asking a teacher for an extension. Maybe you're asking someone else for some extra help to get those assignments done and do them in your way. And so that you're really learning what you need to learn. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of an AI written essay. I'm going to tell you that this particular student, he's a fabulous writer. He did really well with writing. And then he had to go on vacation. And his mom and I were on his back about you need to finish this last essay before you go on vacation. You really need to get it done. And we had brainstormed the essay, but he forgot he was going to, he's doing a lot of things last summer. And so I think he panicked at the last minute. And the essay was for the University of Miami. And I know this is going to be a little hard to read because there's a lot of writing on this page. But in the blue is the text box with the question. Essentially, it says, excuse me, I'm going to read from my second screen because it's a lot bigger and I have very poor eyesight. Essentially, the essay says, please describe how your unique experiences, challenges that you've overcome, and skills acquired would contribute to our distinctive university community. 250 words. So again, he forgot that we had brainstormed this essay. I'll show you the brainstorming notes in a minute. And he just put it into AI. And the essay, I'm going to just read a couple of little snippets from it. It's not a very good essay. And the reason why is because I don't learn anything about the student. It's very generic. Anyone could have written this. I don't see anything specific about him. So in particular, he says things like, or AI said, I doubted my spirituality as I grew older, and the conflict between behavior and belief shaped me in a huge way. But what does that mean? Like, what is, how did these doubts come about your spirituality? What is this conflict? How did it shape you? I'm not getting a lot of specific details here. Another line he said that it says is, my faith taught me to separate religion from morals and treat others with respect because it was right. I chose faith because I wish more than anything else to implement it into my life in a significant way to strengthen my morals. Again, I'm not getting into a lot of specifics. It sounds like very abstract, very vague. I'm not learning anything about the student. And at the end, he says, at the University of Miami, I look forward to living alongside people from all walks of life, contributing to differences of values and beliefs through my self-taught and religious morals. Again, too vague. And one of the things we tell our students is that you need to be really specific in your essays. You need to show good evidence. You need to show that you've done your homework about the school and that you really are truly a good fit. Those specifics make your essay really personal, and they help us learn about you, and then they just make for a better application. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you what our brainstorming notes first are on the side. Again, hard to read, but there's a part that says shaped your morals. I asked him very specifically, tell me what morals. Always telling the truth, caring for others, service to others, going out of my way to help others. And I said, what are some examples? He was a retreat group leader. He volunteered for a festival at his school. And then at the end there, we actually went to the Miami website, and I said, let's pick out a couple of things that you're going to do at Miami because you are, religious. What are some religious groups that you want to be a part of? And because this is part of your essay answer. So we found a couple of very specific things at Miami to show that he's done his homework, right? He's actually researched this website. He's really interested in going there. It's kind of a form of demonstrated interest, and it's pretty important. So his final draft, a couple of specifics, he says, so I applied that. He talks about some tenets that he learned, telling the truth, caring for others, serving those. And in high school, I applied these tenets by leading retreats for middle schoolers, giving them a chance to share their beliefs and grow deeper in their understanding of their faith. I also helped at this festival where I raised $194,000 for a charity. And then at Miami, I'd like to share and expand my perspective through the Catholic Campus Ministry, the City of Miami with the Butler Center for Service and Leadership. And so all of these things, it's just very specific to him. We're getting specific examples. I'm learning about him. This is his writing. It sounds like a person wrote it, right? The first essay, the AI generated one, sounds like anyone could have written it. And honestly, there were a couple of words in there that I was like, I know he's a strong writer, but would he really use these words? And I had been reading a lot of his writing, so I knew that there was a huge difference here. And when I asked him about it, I just said, I didn't want to accuse him of anything. I just said, the essay that he wrote originally that he turned in, I said, this sounds really different from your other writing. What happened? And he told me. I panicked. I had to go on vacation. You and my mom wanted me to get this done, so I got it done, but I just wanted to go on vacation. I was like, okay. But we wrote these brainstorming notes, do you remember? And he's like, oh, where were those? We looked back at them and he said, oh, okay, I can write a better essay. And he did. It didn't take him very long at all. It actually took him less time probably to write his own essay than it was to use the AI one. So, just an example of how someone can tell if something is AI written, and how someone can tell what's a good essay versus not a good essay. Be specific, use evidence, show me something about who you are and how you talk and what you think about. And that's going to be a much better written essay. Okay, so this is the last slide of the presentation, and then we're going to get to a couple of other little quick things. But how can families stay ahead? You know, honestly, there's a lot of things in this process. It's important that you're true to who you are, and that you're learning a lot of different types of skills. Writing is one skill, but maybe you can also work on video preparation. I was talking to someone who said, oh, well, they all use social media, so they must all be like comfortable being in front of a video camera. And I'm like, maybe, maybe not. You know, it's a little different when you're interviewing on a video screen for a college or something else. So practicing some of these other pieces and really thinking about the bigger piece of development and the skills that you can gain throughout the process are important. You should be able to, you know some basics about AI. Again, it's changing at a quick rate. We don't expect you to know all the newest, latest, greatest, but knowing something about AI can be really, really helpful. Purdue actually has a new requirement that everyone at Purdue who graduates has to have some AI literacy. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that's something that maybe, will come down the pipe for other students as well. And the big thing is that you really want to make sure, can you tell what is AI, what's not AI, or can you tell what is unique to you, what is personal to you? There's some self-reflection that has to happen. And you want to use some good judgment and decision-making about what you think of as good use, what someone else might think of as good use, and really be true to yourself about what you're doing. Okay. With that said, I'm going to do a couple of other quick slides, and then we're going to get back to Q&A. So again, put those questions in if you've got them. Just want to say really briefly, if you're interested in working with Collegewise, we would love to work with you. We love our families so much. And in particular, like I said before, we like to do some matchmaking. We get to know colleges really well. We talk to a lot of admissions officers. We go visit schools. We're always reading. Matthew said he's a big nerd at Collegewise. Actually, I think a lot of us are. We love to read about colleges and learn wherever we can. And so we are really trying to find the best fit schools for you, not just the name brands, but really what is a good school for you. We have lots of great experience. I think we're at 100 counselors at this point. I don't know. I haven't actually seen the latest number, but everyone who comes to Collegewise has done something before, something in the education space. They've either been a school counselor or admissions officer or taught or just done something on the college side, like I was an academic advisor. So we have really experienced counselors. And we spend a lot of time talking to each other. I like to joke around that we have more Slack channels in our office than people because we just like to converse with each other and say okay, what do you know about this? I might not know the answer to a family's question, but guess what? I can use that hive mind. I can find the answer pretty quickly, especially if it's something that is not as transparent out there. So with that said, if you are interested in working with Collegewise, we'd love to know how we might be able to help you. Again, as a poll, go ahead and click on whatever answer you'd like. How can Collegewise best help you? I'd like a complimentary meeting is the first one. You will get, it's a free meeting, complimentary to you, so that you can hear a little bit more about what Collegewise could offer you specifically. So not general stuff, but really if you say to us this is what my student is like, this is what we need help with, this is what we're hoping to accomplish, we can really give you more personalized advice. The second one, I'd like more information about Collegewise. This is not necessarily very specific or tailored, but a little bit more information. Third, I'd love your free webinars. Please keep me informed. We do at least 2 webinars every single week. And so we have lots of great information. Or D, no thanks, I've got this. And if you've got it, great. We're really happy that you came and learned and spent some time with us. So I'll let you go ahead and answer that. And then one last thing over here. If you'd like to reach out to us and not wait for us to reach out to you, you're welcome to scan one of the QR codes for educators. If you're interested in working with our office, we do a lot with school districts and nonprofits, and we're happy to work with your school district. In particular, if you'd like us to do a webinar, a complimentary webinar for your school, or work with you in some other way. So that's the first scan. The second QR code is for families, if you want to be connected to an advisor. I believe that scan goes directly to a schedule, and then you can schedule something. Okay, so now we're at the fun part, the Q&A. With this, I think Candace is going to come back and help us get all the questions answered show.
Yeah, we have some great questions in here. I'm going to start with this one. AI can rewrite your own words and make them better, keeping the core of your words. Is this ethical? I feel pressured to use AI because others are as well. Is an AI edited essay better than an unsophisticated human one?
Matthew, I'll let you go.
Okay, so I think with that level of editing, when it goes from just checking for grammar mistakes or spelling mistakes into actually polishing the language, I think most colleges would consider this an unethical use of AI. But if you think about it, it's also probably something that's not really going to help you in a college application essay. Because again, colleges are looking for your personality. And so if you think when your friends talk, your friends have different ways of talking. And the way they talk and the way they express themselves tells so much about their personality. Even just listening to me and Anita, we have different ways of talking. We have different personalities. Thank goodness for Anita. So colleges want to know not just what you've done, but the way you think, the way you express yourself, your voice. And that's part of what they're admitting you for. So it's not only something that's likely to be flagged as unethical, but it's something that could just hurt you if you use AI to overly polish your essay beyond, just a simple grammar check. And think about it. Who would you rather listen to, your friends or an AI drone on and on and on?
Awesome. Okay, next question, sort of similar, but for different part of the application. Is using AI to generate activity descriptions generally frowned upon? Like if you give AI a description of what you did and have it rewrite it more professionally, is that allowed?
I'll take this one. I think it's really important to start with your own words. But one of the things about the activity section of the Common App in particular is you only get 150 characters. And so it can be really hard to trim. And I will say sometimes what I tell students to do is like write your original one, see what, maybe a friend, a family member, or AI might come up with, but then make sure it's still your own, right? If you're not going to use the word, the joke in college admissions is plethora, right? Everyone wants to use the word plethora, whatever. It used to be an old test prep word, wasn't it? If you're not going to use that word, then don't include it in your description, right? Make sure it's still true to you. But I think sometimes it is helpful to use AI for activities descriptions, not to make them sound better, but to get to that 150 word count, 150 character count, excuse me. It's really, really tough.
But I do want to chime in though. I've had students try using AI for cutting, and this mainly shows up in essays to get into the word count, but also the activities list sometimes. I can almost always tell an AI cut because they cut in really weird places a lot of the time, and it often ends up either destroying like the logical flow of the essay overall, or even just internally within sentences. So you've got to be really, really careful if you're using AI to cut.
Okay, I have another question for us. Does AI ever have the final say in admitting or declining a student, or is it strictly a support tool for human reviewers? How are colleges using AI?
Yeah, I can chime in. So as far as we know, and again, this is an area where more transparency is definitely needed, but as far as we know from official policies, no AI is making any final admissions decisions. That's always a human committee. So schools like Virginia Tech will use an AI to score admissions essays, but it won't do this alone. So what happens is that first, an essay will be evaluated by a human and an AI together. And if their scores are very close, then that will be averaged out. But if those scores vary by a whole lot, then another human will be brought in as the kind of tiebreaker to add another score. And so this is actually pretty similar to how Virginia Tech used to do things, where it was multiple humans reading that first round of your essays and assigning a score. And then again, if their scores were far enough apart, they would bring in another human tiebreaker. And so actually, what they have in their policies is that the amount of disagreement that's allowable by the human and AI is actually far, far smaller than the amount of disagreement they used to allow between the humans. So, and then again, that's just the initial round. The final decisions will, as far as we know, will always be made by an actual admissions committee of humans.
Awesome. And then I have one more for us. Do you have any questions that would be good for a student or family to ask an admissions officer around AI?
Sure. I mean, I think that what Matthew said earlier, an important question is, what is the admissions policy around AI use? Do they have one? If so, what is it? You could also ask about a school's policy, because the admissions office might have a different policy than certain departments. Right now, everyone's still learning AI. There's just, it's taking us a long time to kind of get on board to say, like, what is, what's coming up? What do we need to be aware of? What kind of policies do we need to make? So sometimes different departments will make different policies based on what they see in their department and what they need. So I think it's good to ask, what is the general admissions policy about AI use, and what are you seeing, over the whole college or university as a whole? Is there one singular policy? Are there multiple policies depending on the department? And is there anything like I mentioned, Purdue has this AI, they want to make sure everyone has AI literacy. And I think that's going to become more important as time goes on. So you might ask about something like that. How are people using AI? How are they learning more about ethical use of AI? Are there conversations happening on campus?
Awesome. Okay, and I have one more. Do either of you have any favorite AI tools to use in the admissions process that you would recommend for students?
Nothing that's really coming to mind. Yeah, I don't use a ton of AI at the moment. I mean,
I don't either, and
okay.
I've had terrible experiences, and when I've tried to use it for basically anything for college research, I've had it, actually come up with fake links just to please me. Yeah, for like student essay feedback stuff, I always provide them feedback myself. I've never really tried using an AI, but I know students have asked for feedback from AI on their essays. And I've had 2 students who included content in their essays that was just plain inappropriate for a college essay, that they should not be writing about. When I asked them, like, okay, this is not really good. It's not what we discussed when we were brainstorming this stuff. Here's why it's not so great to write about and might be, actually a result in a high chance of your rejection. Why did you include this? And in those 2 cases, they're like, oh, well, ChatGPT said this was really good. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds terrifying, like the different little loops that it can get into. So my guess is that sometimes it could give good advice on things like essays, but you've got to be really, really careful that it's not steering you astray. And then I think just another really important thing is that an AI its nature is not to kind of disagree or challenge you. It's to fulfill your prompts. That's what makes it really useful, but that's also what makes it limited compared to humans. So I think a really important part of my brainstorming process with students is examining their values. But when I say examining, not just asking them what their values are, but saying, okay, have you thought about this complex situation? Have you thought about where, your values may not apply, or where they might actually result in, worse outcomes than what you were expecting? And so a lot of my counseling process is just challenging students to think more deeply and actually develop their perspectives. And, I can do this because I'm a human, and I can challenge people unprompted. If something is just a tool for fulfilling your prompts, then it's a lot less likely to do that.
I want to say one other quick thing is that I think Google Docs is really important, especially for evidence. So, if you use Google Docs and you're editing in there, if other people are helping you edit, please don't have more than one person help you edit ever, because it's just too crazy. But, I would say, and then you can go back and look at past drafts. And if someone's asking you for evidence, that's a really easy, simple tool where you can say, okay, here are all my past drafts. So you can see my train of thinking and what I changed. And that can be really useful, not as an AI tool, but as a way of defending yourself. And I've actually heard some teachers use this now to see if the student's doing their own writing. Anyway, with that, thank you so much. We're so glad to spend some time with you. Candace, I don't know if you want to say anything else.
Yeah, thank you so much to Collegewise and our incredible presenters tonight, Matthew and Anita. Your insights are so valuable. I know it's really going to help these families as they're learning more about ethical use and AI and admissions. Some last items before we say goodbye. When our webinar ends, there's going to be a survey that pops up, and we'd appreciate it if you could take 5 minutes to let us know how we did and how we can best support you in the future. If you'd like to view this webinar again, you will receive it via email and also find it on the website in a few days. And then on behalf of ACT and Collegewise, thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you for our next My Journey event, April 14th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, How to Be Uniquely You, Authenticity in College Admissions. Thanks, everyone.